The grocery store buzzed with the everyday chatter of shoppers. The faint hum of carts on the tiled floor and casual conversations created a familiar backdrop. It was just another ordinary afternoon in a small, tight-knit town in Georgia. Or so it seemed. By the fruit aisle, an elderly woman stood adjusting her bifocals. She appeared harmless enough, wearing a soft beige sweater, her silver hair neatly tied into a bun. But her impatient murmurs and sharp glances hinted at a hardened attitude. Nearby, a young man named Marcus moved toward the oranges. He was in his late 20s, wearing a black hoodie and jeans, a grocery basket in one hand and his phone in the other. Marcus wasn't causing any trouble, just another shopper minding his business. As Marcus reached for a bag of oranges, the elderly woman's eyes darted toward him. Her expression darkened, and what she said next sent shockwaves through the room. "Why don't you go back to Africa?" she said sharply, her voice loud enough to silence the chatter around them. Marcus froze. He wasn't sure if he'd heard her right, but the judgment in her voice and the coldness in her stare made it clear. He had. The air in the store grew heavy. Conversation stopped. Shoppers exchanged uncomfortable glances. A few pretended not to notice. Marcus could feel every set of eyes on him. His mind raced. He could yell, walk away, or fire back. But instead, he took a deep breath and straightened his posture. "Ma'am," he said, his voice calm but firm, "do you realize what you just said?" The elderly woman didn't waver. "I said what I said. This is my country. People like you don't belong here." A young cashier near the register gasped audibly, while others shifted uneasily. But Marcus didn't flinch. He nodded slowly, setting his basket down. His gaze remained steady, his voice calm but commanding. "All right," he said. "Let's talk about that. Since you brought it up." The crowd around them grew still. Even those who had been trying to stay out of it couldn't help but lean in. Marcus began, his voice carrying a weight of history and truth. "You say I don't belong here. But let me tell you about where I come from. My great-great-grandfather was born in Alabama. He was a sharecropper working land he didn't own, just to give his children a chance at a better life. His father, my ancestor, was a slave, forced to build this country with his hands, his sweat, and his tears. For what? So people like me could one day live free." The elderly woman clutched her shopping cart tighter. Her face flushed, but she said nothing. Marcus continued, his voice unwavering. "My grandfather fought in World War II. He risked his life for a country that treated him like less than human when he came back. Couldn't sit in the same diners, couldn't drink from the same fountains, but he stayed. He stayed because he believed in the promise of this country, even when it didn't believe in him." The room was silent. Even the faint hum of the refrigerator seemed to fade. "My parents," Marcus said, his tone softening, "they worked hard every single day. My mom's a nurse, spent her life helping others. My dad's a truck driver, the kind of man who'd pull over to help a stranger, no matter who they were." He paused, his eyes steady. "So when you tell me to go back to Africa, you're not just insulting me. You're insulting every sacrifice my family made to be here. I belong here just as much as you do. Maybe even more." The elderly woman's hands trembled. Her gaze faltered, darting toward the crowd as if searching for someone to back her up. But no one did. A middle-aged man in a plaid shirt stepped forward. "He's right," the man said. "We've got to be better than this." A young woman near the bakery added softly, "My grandpa always said the only color that matters is red, white, and blue." The murmurs grew louder. Someone started clapping, a hesitant sound at first, but it grew, spreading through the crowd. The elderly woman looked around one last time before quietly wheeling her cart toward the exit. She didn't say another word. Marcus stood there for a moment, the clapping washing over him. A woman placed a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you," she said, her voice full of emotion. Marcus smiled faintly, lifting his basket. "Sometimes," he said, almost to himself, "you've just got to say the truth. Let it do the work." Later that evening, Marcus sat at the dinner table with his mom and dad. He told them what had happened. His father nodded slowly, his eyes thoughtful. "You did good, son. Sometimes it's not about changing someone's mind right away. It's about planting a seed." Across town, the elderly woman sat in her dimly lit living room, staring at an old family photo on the mantel. Marcus's words echoed in her mind. For the first time, she felt a pang of doubt. In the days that followed, the story of what happened in the grocery store spread through the community. People talked about Marcus's courage, his calmness, and the way he handled hate with dignity. Some said it was just another moment, but for others it was a wake-up call, a reminder that the fight for understanding and respect isn't over. Moments like these don't just change people, they change communities. And sometimes, that's where real change begins. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's spread kindness, courage, and truth, one story at a time. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting stories.